Gem Bit. You know that old saying that says you never judge a book by its cover? Well, the same is true for gemstones. Turns out that peridot and diamonds actually come from the same place, deep within the earth, in the mantle, where the heat and the pressure is extremely high. In fact, peridot and diamonds also come from outer space. Something to think about the next time you meet somebody that you don't know. Discover the value of your story.
Increase. So this award lets me know that good morning, bonjour, comment ça va? Et toi? Ça va très bien. Je suis heureux. I am so happy to be with you. Ni hao. Hola, bienvenue, Wanying, bienvenidos, bienvenita, benvenuta, namaste, and welcome. Welcome to another exciting episode of Gem Hunter Stories. My name is Barry B. Mixon, and I am a Gemmological Storyteller. And each week, I get the magnificent opportunity to take you on an adventure. To places you've never been before. To hear stories you've never heard before. Each week, I take the art, science, history, and magic of gemstones, precious metals, and fine jewelry, and put them all together into a story. What I've discovered over the years is that many of the same characteristics, the same traits, the same attributes that we so highly value in gemstones and precious metals can be found in people, can be found in you. So what I do is I take those gem stories and I use them as a template, as an inception point, as a bridge to help people, to empower people, to remind people to take time to discover the value of their own stories. I'm excited. Today's the last Wednesday of the month. Can you believe it was Wednesday and the 29th of November already? It's already the end of the month. So I'm here with you. Thank you. Obviously, I'm back home in my lab in the United States. So want to welcome all the new people, some of my Napoleon Bonaparte friends who I've met over since the movie. And thank you, Barbara. And let's get started. I wanted to continue on with the conversations, and thank you for your comments, your posts, the emails that you sent me in regards to last week's show. And I wanted to extrapolate that a little bit more, give you a little bit more understanding of what I'm talking about when I talk about cut and how does it fit into not only just gemstones, but how does it work for you? So So the name today's episode is Cut and the Importance of a Story. Because remember, that's what this show is about. This show is about taking gemstones, taking those characteristics, the stories that we believe in gemstones, and showing how those same stories relate to you. So cut and the importance of a story. When we think about gemstones, it really, what makes, as I tell you, each week I do this show, it's almost a religious kind of experience for me, because I always have an idea where I want to go, but there's always something that happens along the way, just in those 7 days, 6 days, actually, because, I got to take time to put together the show, that makes me think about it. I could be studying, I could be reading something, I could be kind of reviewing something, things that I've studied a long time ago. I've been studying gemmology for almost 20 years now. And believe it or not, there's always something that hits me that goes, wow, I didn't think about that. So last week we were talking about cut, right? Cut. And as those of you who didn't watch last week's show, okay, of course it's online, you can watch it. But those of you who didn't watch last week, we were talking about cut, which is one of the 4 C's, right? The 4 C's, everybody, excuse me. A lot of people understand and know about the 4 C's. Normally we're talking about diamonds, right? So the first C is color, right? Color. And so when we talk about, we went over color. So we know that white light, all white light basically has all the colors of the rainbow. Colors come from the white light, right? It's a wavelength. So we talked about, remember your second, third grade, a red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet. Those are the rainbow colors. So, and a gemstone either refracts that light, meaning splits it up, or it absorbs it, right? So the color you see, all the other colors are absorbed except the color that you see. So this is a rainbow. This is literally outside my bedroom window. In fact, this area is called Rainbow Beach. So imagine just, when you're in sync with God. Okay, this is a rainbow that I took from my bedroom window in a place called Rainbow Beach in Chicago. Voila. So you can see all the colors right there. So what happens is we are standing at a certain angle, and because of that angle, that light, when it goes through a raindrop, it refracts and you see all the colors of the rainbow, the different wavelengths. All right, here's a wide. In fact, on that day, there was a double rainbow. So doubly blessed. There you go. That's what it looks like. Now, so diamonds come in every color of the rainbow, from colorless all the way to black, red, green, yellow. All these colors relate to that. All right. So this is obviously a breathtaking canary yellow diamond. We won't even talk about the cost. It's a lot. The old saying, if you got to ask, you can't afford it. Yeah, there you go. So, all right, let's just look at it and go, oh. All right, so let's move on. So when light comes through, it breaks the light up into its certain wavelength. So that's what color is. Then we talk about carat. And what carat really means, it's a unit of measurement. Carat is a unit of measurement. So what carat equals is weight. So when you're talking about a 5, 10, 2, 1 carat diamond, what you're talking about is weight. And we're going to do a whole show on that, because I think it's interesting how we can so easily talk about weight in a diamond. And the bigger the weight is, the more valuable it has. Of course, there's other attributes you have to consider as well. But imagine we living in a society where the weight you are is the weight you are. And imagine being big and saying, girl, I put on 5 carats. How's it look? Oh, you look fantastic. Imagine that. No woman in the world would ever get mad at her man or her partner coming home with a 5 carat, 10 carat diamond going, oh, no, I don't want that. It's just too big. It's too much weight. Never. So weight equals carat equals weight. Right? So then we talk about clarity. And I want you to pay attention to this as we get further along in today's program. Clarity. Now, clarity is basically, it refers to how gemmologists make an assessment on how transparent or how occluded that gemstone is. So whether it has the presence of internal or external characteristics, what we normally call inclusions or blemishes. Those of you, the general public, we talk about clarity, and sometimes people go, oh God, it has this and it has that in it. And as a gemologist, those things that the inclusions, as they call the blemishes, but those inclusions that's in the gemstone, we as gemologists, we look at those things as characteristics, as things that make that gemstone unique. Very, 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 very exciting. 9.99% of diamonds have something inside of them, have something wrong with them. There's something inside of them that's not supposed to be there. All right. And so those of you who have bought diamonds before, you know the drill. It goes from flawless or F all the way to I1, 2, 3. So flawless, then you have internally flawless, VS 1, 2, very, very slightly included. Then you have very slightly included 1, 2. Then you have slightly included 1, 2. Some places go 1, 2, and 3. And GIA SI3 really doesn't exist. It's really SI1, slightly included 1 and 2. Then you get into the eyes. The eyes are, when you see an eye gemstone, I1, I2, I3, that's a gemstone that has a lot of things going on inside of it, a lot of inclusion. It's still a diamond. It's just that when it grew up, it went through a lot. Think of it that way. Every time I talk about gemstones, I want you to think about you as a person. So yeah, we have the person who's rich over here, who's internally flawless. They grew up, they had money, they're rich, everything's taken care of, they're beautiful, they're this, their body. And then there's variations of the rest of us. We are all human beings, but there's things inside of us. And as we see lots of times with people, the people that we thought was internally flawless or, very, 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 very slightly included, we find out later on that this person has issues. So think of it that way. So in terms of a diamond, that's what clarity is. Clarity is when there's something inside of the diamond, a blemish or something that changes the way it looks, changes its value. And as a gemologist, as an appraiser, this is what we have to do. We have to look at, and these are all the different things that can happen inside a diamond. You can have a cavity, you can have a crystal, meaning that sometimes you have a diamond growing inside of a diamond. You have black crystals. Some of you guys use say charcoal. It's not charcoal. Lots of times it's graphite. Remember what a diamond is? If it doesn't have all the characteristics that it takes to make a diamond, heat, pressure coming up from the ground at 500 miles an hour. If those things don't exist, you get a pencil. So all your children or you who are using pencils, that's a diamond who didn't make the cut. So these are all the things, pinpoint, feathers. So if you ever had an appraisal and basically had a picture drawn of your diamond, those little marks are what the gemologist or the gemmological appraiser will look at and say what that diamond is. Those are identifying characteristics. So that's clarity. So the blemishes, and so what I want you to understand is that the blemishes and the inclusions is what defines the value of a diamond. Think about that. The blemishes and the inclusions are what defines the value of a diamond. And you'll see how, as we go on, you will see how that relates to you, because it's huge. It's huge when you really think about that. Now we're going to talk about cut. Cut, again, as I said to you last show, I've been studying this for a long, long time. And I always thought of cut like a lot of you. Well, I didn't think about it like I thought about that as first. Well, we thought of cut as shape. Marquee cut, round brilliant, Asher cut, princess cut. That's not what cut is. That's not what cut is. That's shape. Cut is how, and we talked about last week, critical angle, how the light goes into that gemstone. We talked about critical angle, and I told you that if it's beyond the critical angle, basically all the light comes through. So when the light comes through, critical angle is when it hits critical angle, the light stays inside of the diamond. It stays on the inside surface of a diamond. When it's greater than the critical angle, that means the light bounces. It refracts and it bounces off to the other side, hits another critical angle, and then ultimately the light comes through the top. That's what you want. And then I talked about that critical angle is also based on what we call the refractive index, what that gemstone is made out of. Think about it, what that gemstone is made out of. And I don't want you to get too confused. It's kind of like people who the first person that comes to my mind is Simone Biles. Okay, Simone Biles. Simone Biles is a woman. She's a human being. And there is something about her body, her structure, her body biomechanics that allows her to do things that no one else can do. So her refractive index is huge, is unbelievable. So the way light, the way things, the way information, the way those movements hit her, when she's running down I'm thinking about floor exercise that I was watching her last night. I mean, how do you flip in the air? How do you, and she's not that tall, how do you get enough height, elevation to literally flip your body straight? It's not like she's curled up, literally flipping her body 3 to 4 times and landing. So her refractive index, if we measured refractive index in a human being the way we would a diamond, I mean, Simone Biles, Michael Jordan, Michael Phelps, Serena Williams, they have a refractive index. They can do things that normal human beings can't do. Just like a diamond. A diamond refracts the light in a way that no other gemstone does. See, you starting to see the analogy? All right, cool. Let's continue on. So, cut is, again, it's not shape. It is how the gemstone is proportioned. What is the proportion of a gemstone? Is it too shallow? Is it too deep? Because if it's too shallow, you're going to have light leakage. If it's too deep, you're going to also have light leakage. Your light performance is not going to be good. How many facets does it have? How many different places for the diamond to bounce off of? So when you go to, I can't think of a jewelry store. I don't know. When you go to Jared's, and Jared was running for a while, not so much the ideal cut, but they had, I forgot what they was calling their diamonds, but basically there was a special cut that they had that had a certain amount of facets that maximized the light. And then the symmetry. How is it all put together? How is it put together in such a way that augments, that increases the light performance and, of course, the overall finish? How is it polished? How is it polished? How is everything put together? Those of you who own luxury cars, your Porsches, your BMWs, your Lamborghinis, your Monbunks, these cars are cars that are finished to a certain level. Everything, every detail, the way the speakers, the way the knobs are, the ergonomics of the seat, all those things constitutes the finish. And you can apply that to houses, clothes, everything. So that's what a cut is in a gemstone. It's all those characteristics that have to come together in order to create that gemstone that costs millions and millions of dollars. So, and then as I told you before, cut equals light performance. Cut equals light performance. So the way that cut is, I think about the work ethic of someone. This is football season. So I'm thinking about, I live in Chicago. So let's talk about Walter Payton. His work ethic was just unbelievable. He was running up mountains, literally like the tallest hills in Illinois. He was running up mountains so when he got on the field, he was able to do things. His aerobic capacity was unbelievable. Michael Phelps would talk about swimming 8 hours a day. Those are all the things that they can do. Simone Biles is like, I don't know what she's she's in her 30s and she's still doing the things that women can't do at 20. Serena, all these, just put it together. People who are artists, musicians, things of this. That's the cut and the way they practice, the way they put it together. That's their light performance. That's what you hear. That's what you see. When you listen to Mozart, you hear it. You hear the hours and the time and the attention to detail that he put to each note. When you listen to Miles Davis, so just apply whatever is your field that you love, whatever art that you love. Think about people who just think about you painting a wall and then think about Picasso painting a wall. So your cut is different. The way you were created, the way you was put it together, that's different. And because you have a different cut, whatever your cut is, that is equal to what your light performance is. All right, so let's continue on. So again, light performance evaluates how well a gemstone reflects the light, refracts the light, meaning it bounces off. It's like a reflection. Refracts, meaning how that gemstone breaks up that white light into its individual wavelengths. You have to understand, it breaks up all light or everything. Energy is waves. So red, orange, yellow, green, blue, indigo, violet, those are wavelengths. So what your gemstone can do, what a diamond can do is, one, slow down the speed of light. I'll let you think about that for a second. Your diamond, anybody's diamond, slows down the speed of light. When it comes in, the light that's coming off of my light here is hitting, if this was a real diamond, hitting this diamond, it slows it down and then it breaks it up into its various colors. And then it disperses the light. It manifests the light, which ultimately determines its brilliance, its fire, and its sparkle. Think about that. Now take a second to think about how it relates to you. Your cut, how you were created, how your mother beat your behind on a daily basis to go to school, how your coach, your teacher, your aunt, somebody told you, girl, you better get back in there and do whatever. Boy, you know what? You playing baseball. Or you're going to study. Or my mother, you going to college. I don't care what happens. You going to college. My mother's favorite saying, I'm sure it relates to a lot of you. My mother said, Mom, I don't want to go to school. Okay, you don't have to go to school, but you're getting the hell out of here. That's what my mother said. I can still hear my mother. I don't want to go to school. I'm like, yeah, okay, Mom, I got you. So because of the cut, because of the things that your mother, your father, somebody in your life told you, created you, made you who you are. That's what manifests. That's what you see. The people who are successful, Tyler Perry has a documentary out basically talking about what his mother did to him, for him, in order to become who he is today. So his mother cut him. His mother cut him and designed him, fashioned him, finished him, polished him in order for him, or at least she was the start of it. And then he continued on, and you see the man he is today, his brilliance, his fire, his sparkle. That's what you see. You with me? All right, let's continue on. And what happened to me last week on Thanksgiving was really an eye-opening experience. I went to go see, as you saw, Thanksgiving, November 23rd, I went to go see Napoleon, as I told you I was going to go see the movie. A whole movie about Napoleon Bonaparte. As I tell you many, many times, I love Napoleon. This is a bust of Napoleon that's on my desk. I love Napoleon. My first book report when I was, 10 years old, my first serious book report was on Napoleon Bonaparte. So I went to see the movie on Thanksgiving by, what's his name? Ridley Scott. Joaquin Phoenix played Napoleon. And I had unbelievable expectations for this movie, although I had heard some bad things about it. Think about the caption of this. We're stories, right? He came from nothing. He conquered everything. That was the trailer. Most of you saw the trailer of the movie. Okay. And then there was another one. He did everything, the world for Josephine. Josephine Bonaparte, his wife. Now, I'm not going to As those of you who saw my Facebook post, yeah, disappointment is an understatement. But I had to sit there and think about it because as a storyteller, this is what as a gemmological storyteller, I always think, okay, what was wrong with the story? What happened? What happened? Why did I leave the theater upset? I mean, literally, I was sitting in the theater. It was cold, so I had my hood on. I had my hood on up to my eyes, laying back in the seat like I wanted to be invisible. It was so, for me, it was so messed up, add in the words I want to say, that I wish I could have just disappeared. I wanted to stand up in the theater and just say, this is some beep-a-doo beep. But I had to say to myself, okay, it's not enough just to say the movie was whatever I thought it was. What was the problem with it? And the problem I had with Napoleon was the story. And when I started really thinking about it, I really said to myself, oh my God, this totally fits into everything that I'm talking about with the 4 C's, in particular cut. So let's go. So I'm not going to sit here and give you a whole long history of Napoleon Bonaparte. It's just crazy. His story. I have books here that are this thick. I have, I don't know, at least 7, 8 books on Napoleon. Napoleon at Waterloo, Napoleon in America, Napoleon's love affairs. I have a book. I'm looking for it right now. I don't have it handy. There's the book this thick on just his love stories. So let's just look at the story. So instead of telling you, yes, it's easy to talk about Napoleon as the general, okay? Greatest general of all time. We studied at warfare school in the Marine Corps. We studied some tactics of Napoleon. That's part of it. In fact, countries all over the world, they have a military, they talk about Napoleon. But we're not going to talk about that. We're not going to talk about some of his famous battles that he did. This is when he was in Egypt, the things that he did. We're not going to talk about that. All right. It's not that important, but it's not really the important part of the story. This is his victory at Austerlitz. Okay. Austerlitz. All right. His greatest battle, which happened 1 year after he crowned himself emperor. 1 year, December 2nd, he got crowned 1804. This battle, the greatest battle, one of the greatest battles of all time, and the greatest battle for him happened 1 year after he crowned himself emperor. But that's not the thing. That's not the thing. And of course, this is when he crowned himself and Josephine as emperor of France, December 2nd, 1804. All right. So all those things. Let's put it in terms of cut. Now, as I told you, these are all the things, or most of the things that I, as a gemologist, if I am viewing a gemstone, if I'm looking at a gemstone with my trusty, handy dandy trusty loupe, and I'm looking at this gemstone with my loupe, these are the possible things that I can see in a gemstone. And as I told you, very, 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 very rare for a gemstone, for a diamond, not to have something here. To have a diamond that's internally flawless or absolutely flawless is extremely rare. Extremely rare. So these are not, it's part of the process. It's part of becoming a diamond. These things happen depending on the environment, depending on the heat, the pressure, depending on what was around it. These are the things that happen. A bruise, internal graining, pinpoint, all these things happen. Sometimes when you're cutting the gemstone, the bearded girdle, it would depend on how the diamantaire was cutting the diamond, left beards. If he was cutting it too fast, it caused what's bearding. Bearding is on the girdle. Is the girdle too thick? Is it too thin? All these things happen to make this. So my problem with Napoleon is, if we're going to talk what the movie was in terms of cut, you're only focusing on one thing. The movie focused on just him, his relationship with Josephine, and that was off. That was off. They made Napoleon seem like that he was insecure, that he was needy, that he was just, oh my God, just there's scenes in there that it just made you cry. And I'm not saying that Napoleon was perfect. Napoleon, let me say this loudly. Napoleon was messed up in a whole lot of ways. He did have issues with women. He truly did. In fact, later on, after Josephine, the way he was treating women, there were there were stories that I would read about Napoleon. And I would just sit there as a man living in the kind of times we live in now. I'm just like, wow, dude, did you really just do that to your wife? I mean, when he broke up with Josephine, he literally just said, I just need a womb. I just need a womb. He just needed someone to carry his seed. That's all. He didn't care about nobody, nothing. All right. But that's only part of it. So let's go back to cut. Cut refers to how well a gemstone has been fashioned from its raw state to a polished gem. So you start like this, and this is where you wind up. And this is where the analogy comes in. So when you look at a diamond, it's every diamond don't look exactly like this, but basically this is what a diamond looks like when it first gets started. When it's found in the ground, this is what it looks like. Then it becomes this. A diamond looks like this when you first pick up the diamond. When you first find it, that's what it looks like. If a person brought home, honey, I bought you a diamond. Okay, sweetie. And let's put it in a nice box. Let's put it in a nice fancy Tiffany box. Baby, here's your diamond. And you show your woman this, or you show your man this. Somebody's sleeping outside. Okay, what's this? Baby, it's a diamond. Come on, baby. It's huge. It's a diamond. Put this on your face. No. So this diamond in its raw form, looks like this, and then it becomes this. Think about that in your own life. Think about who you were when you were a kid, when you were a teenager, when you were in your 20s, 10 years ago, 5 years ago. Where were you? Many of us look like this. Some of us are there now. Some of us, this is exactly how we feel right now. I talked to a young man yesterday. He's 23 years old. And he's just like, man, I just feel like I'm lost. And then you can tell there's so many things he wants to do, but this is how he feels about himself. And what I told him is, it's just all part of the process. It's all part of the process. I'm 63 years old, and it's just now that I feel like, wow, the things that I've learned, the things that came together, the things that I've gone through in my life. It's only now that I feel like this. That's what cut is. Cut is that process that you have to go through. That's that part. And as a man thinketh, very soon so altered has his mind become that the workshop can no longer hold him. It has become so out of harmony with his mentality that it falls out of his life as a garment, as cast aside, and with the growth of opportunity which fit the scope of his expanding powers, he passes out of it forever. That's what it's talking about. The distance between this and that. So when you talk about Napoleon, you have to understand that a diamond comes from here. This is where diamonds come from. They're not found on a diamond grove or a tree. Look, mommy, here's a diamond. Honey, what are you going to do? Honey, what are you going to do? I'm going to grow diamonds in the backyard. No, this is where diamonds come from. This is where Napoleon came from. He came from a little mountainous island called Corsica in the middle of the Mediterranean. It wasn't even a powerful island. Corsica was taken over many times. Italy, France, back and forth, back and forth, back and forth. This is where he came from. This little tiny island. And this is 2023. So imagine what the island looked like then. This is where he grew up. This is Napoleon's house. He grew up in his house. Napoleon, He came from a family of 8 kids. He was the second of 8 kids. Okay, his brother Joseph was older than him. And his father, this is where he was born. Nothing fancy. This is the man. I mean, when I went to his house, I kept saying, this is a man that became an emperor. This is where he was born. And the person doing the tour said, we knew he was born in this room. We just don't know exactly where. So we didn't put his crib in a certain place. But this was the room Napoleon was. Does it look fancy? Does it look like, I mean, what? What? This is where he was born. This is where he slept as a teenager. He slept there as a teenager. The man wasn't that big. He was what, 5'6", 5'7"? So this was his bed. He grew up there. His father, Carlo, was a lawyer. And it wasn't a good lawyer. I mean, he had a few bit of connections, but I told you he wasn't a con artist, but he was one of these guys that, he always had a get rich quick scheme. He always had something that oh baby, we're going to make money this way. Oh baby, multi-level marketing, whatever they had in the 18th century. Yeah, that kind of thing. That was who he was. And he died. And when he died, he left his wife, Letitia, with 8 kids. Think about it, moms, all those moms listening to the show who are single moms, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Think about yourself with 8 kids in the 17th century, where 18th century, where, women weren't exactly, not that women are like living a lifestyle now, but imagine being an 18th century woman with no money coming in, husband's dead, you got 8 kids, and you got to survive. So what did she do? She used her brains. She put it together. Part of who Napoleon was because his mother didn't play. His mother put them to work. This was the basement of Napoleon's house. And what they did was they made oil. She got into real estate. She literally enlisted her whole family, like all the kids worked. All the kids like, you, this is what y'all gonna do. You, this is what you're gonna do. Napoleon, what you gonna do? I don't know, Mom. I tell you what you're gonna do. You're gonna join the military. He joined the military. Why? Because he had to pay them bills. The Bonaparte family owed money. In fact, it was on his skull. It was on his skull. It was on his mind for a long time that he didn't have money. So how was he gonna get money? So he joined the military. I mean, he liked it. He wanted to, but part of the reason why he joined the military was because he had to get his family out of debt. That's why he joined. So here's a kid that joined the military. He was fortunate enough, and he loved reading. He loved reading in school, so he was good. So he earned a scholarship to go to France. He went to France. He became an officer. And here is Napoleon. At 24 years old, he was a general. At 20, I'm going to let you think about that for a second. He joined the military when he was 17 years old. Here's a kid that wasn't even French. In fact, he always spoke French with a really bad accent. He learned it. He couldn't really write French. They teased him about it all the time. He went from Corsica to become an officer in the French army. He wasn't even in the high level. He was an artillery officer, which a lot of people didn't even respect artillery officers. He became a general when he was 24. He met, and you know what? Let's take a break because I want to talk about Josephine. So we'll go into the continuing story of Bonaparte and Josephine when we come back from the other side.
Hey, Gem Hunter family, let me show you something really special. This is the Star of Adam, the world's largest star sapphire, 1,404 carats. It's called the Star of Adam because in the Muslim religion, Adam lived in Sri Lanka in a place called Adam's Peak right after he left the Garden of Eden. Discover the value. Your story.
All right, we're back. Part of the importance, just like cut, in order for me to appraise a gemstone, I have to know what its story is. Where did it come from? How was it made? What is the cut? How is it polished and fashioned? Most people, when they think about Josephine, and it was definitely shown like that in the movie, Josephine was this kind of evil, gold digging kind of woman and everything. Nah, that's not who Josephine was. Did she position herself in certain ways that made her she had to move up? She was a woman. If you were a woman in those days and you didn't have a husband, you wasn't nothing. So literally, Josephine grew up in Martinique. Her family was rich, like seriously rich. A hurricane hit, and she lived in a sugar plantation. So she was Creole. Grew up in Martinique. Her family suffered a hurricane hit the island, totally wiped out the plantation. She was literally living in the barn where they used to store sugar. Her teeth were black because she chewed sugar cane. So most of her teeth were rotten. So that's why she smiled like that all the time. She got married to an abusive husband. Yeah, ladies, think about it. She got married, her husband, her first husband, the man she married, and it was arranged man because she really grew up with, his name was Alexander. She grew up with him. He was extremely abusive. Not only was he abusive, but he cheated on her all the time. He had so many women. There were times he wouldn't even come home. For like the longest time he stayed away from Josephine was a year. And they had 2 kids. So she literally had 2 kids with this man who literally was bringing home his women and all kinds. I started to say something else, bringing home his women and everything else. He did not care. In fact, at one point, he was beating her so badly that she ran away into a convent. And then what he did was he took the kids. So she was like, what? So she came back, had to fight for her kids. They worked it out. They wound up going. She went with him to France. He became somebody in France because, he was a mover and shaker to some extent. And what happened was, because he picked the wrong sides, kind of like what the reverse of what Napoleon did, he got caught up with the monarchy when the French Revolution happened. So they arrested him, cut off his head. He was beheaded because he was in league. They didn't trust him. First, he was with the royals. Then he switched sides and went with the rebels. And they didn't trust him. So what they did was they arrested him and Josephine. They cut off his head. He was done. Took the kids away from Josephine. Put Josephine in jail. And she would have died too. It's just that the power structure, the guy who was doing all this, eventually they cut off his head. So they released everybody. This was called the Reign of Terror. 10 years. 16,000 people literally lost their heads. Josephine survived. So when she met Napoleon, she was just looking for somebody to hook her up. Like, can I get some help here? So she messed around. She messed around a lot. In fact, she cheated on Napoleon 2 weeks, 3 weeks after they got married. Napoleon was very upset, was threatening to divorce her. Her kids, who she loved, and Napoleon loved her kids too, her 2 kids. Hortense was one of them. I forgot the boy's name, girl and a boy. And it was the girl that basically convinced Napoleon, don't leave my mom. And she never cheated on him again. She actually, towards the middle of their relationship, they were together for 15 years. She loved Napoleon. She loved Napoleon, even to the point where, even though Napoleon never trusted her again, which is part of his mental problems with women, he never trusted her again, but he bought her, when he married her, he spent all his money. This is called the Moi et Toi ring, sapphire and diamond ring. He used all his money to give her this engagement ring. He only knew her for 6 months before he got married. Okay, those of us who have been in relationships know that you already made a mistake because you really didn't know who she was. But even though she did what she did, and he did, because he wasn't, he was out there too. He was out there too. But even though they had all those issues, he still loved her enough and cared enough about her to crown her an empress. And he allowed her to be an empress for the rest of her life. She died young. She died like 50 years old. She died young. Tuberculosis, something like this. Or she had pneumonia, then it went to tuberculosis. And they don't tell that story. They make Napoleon seem like he was just this needy, oh my God, like sexual pervert. Not saying he wasn't special. When you read his love story, yeah, he was special. But he loved Josephine. He loved Josephine. All the way even when he got married again, he still cared of her. He hooked her up. She had about 4 or 5 different houses. She wanted for nothing. Nothing. That story's never told. That story's never told. The real love story of who she is. And those of us, come on, I got stories like that in my own relationships with women. What? You know, I didn't sit there and say I needed a womb, but you know, you guys have heard my stories about my ex, you know, drugs and alcohol and everything else. To this day, the reason I speak is because of her. They didn't tell that story. They didn't tell how. So like I just said, the reason why I started speaking is because my ex-wife told me that I was a fountain of useless information. And I started thinking to myself, you know what? I do talk a lot. You might need to do something with this. So if you're going to tell the story of Barry B. Mixon, you got to talk about my ex. You got to talk about she was the one, my lightsaber, which is literally, where's it's around here somewhere. It's right here. This lightsaber is the reason. My ex-wife gave me this. We was already separated. This was the start of everything. So if you're going to tell a story, you got to tell the whole thing. You can't just say, he's this, he's that, she's this, she's that. Oh, she's out there loose. You didn't tell the whole story. Not to mention, then that's just their relationship. This is some of the things that Napoleon did. Well, some of you guys, yes. Was he perfect? No, he wasn't. There's lots of things. You know, he started the whole thing. He had issues with black people. We did a show a few months ago talking about Joseph Belot, the Chevalier de Saint George, who was black, who literally worked with Mozart, gave Mozart. He locked him up. He had him locked up, took his, because, you know, jealousy and everything else. So I'm not sitting here talking about Napoleon was like this perfect person. He wasn't. He did a lot of crazy stuff that I'm sitting there like, what? But these are the things that he did. Education reforms. He made sure that people were educated. When you go to Paris, when you go to France, a lot of the infrastructure that exists, the roads and things of this, it's because of him. Where I live in Calais, such as southwestern France, he was the one that literally made sure that the trees were lined up a certain way, the agriculture, religious tolerance. This is why the whole of Europe was after him, because he was changing the game. He was changing the game. The advancement of science and technology, guess what? Have you opened up a can of vegetables or a can of anything as of yet? Guess who started that? He didn't do it, but because he was a military person, he knew that his troops needed food. He did a contest. I think it was like for $10,000, which of course that was a lot of money back in those days. He gave a contest for someone to invent a system where food could stay fresh longer, could stay viable longer. So fresh canned foods came from Napoleon creating a contest for someone to discover that. Standardization, the metric system in France, in Europe, started with Napoleon. He brought it to France, the metric system. Expansion of civil rights. Again, he had issues with black people. Yeah. He had issues with women. A lot of the rights that women had before he came into power, some of those rights they lost. Okay. Art, if you've been to the Louvre, art and culture exchange. Now, again, if you've gone to the Louvre, you see a whole lot of stuff that came from places all over the world, especially Egypt. Now, let's be honest. Napoleon stole those. He took those things. He went to those countries and he just said, oh, okay, I like this, I like this, I like this. And he put it in the Louvre because he needed a place to put them. But the artwork that we see today is because of him. If you've been to the France and you talk about millions, France is the most visited city in the whole world for the last 10 years. And everybody's talking about, oh, I've been to the Champs-Élysées. Oh, I've been to the Louvre. I've been to the Arc de Triomphe. Napoleon. The sewer system, there's so many books that talks about what France was. In the 18th century, France was the most god-awfulest place in the world. The smell, people were defecating in the streets. Dogs, horses. The Seine River wasn't this nice river that you see today. The Seine River was filled with fecal matter. I mean, people were getting sick and all kinds of things. Napoleon was the one that said, no, we can't handle it. In fact, Louis XIV, part of the reason why he went to Versailles is because he couldn't stand the smell. Napoleon cleaned that up. If you like French food, French wine, Napoleon realized that the way to get to the people was to increase food and wine and water. Food, wine, water. Those are the things he said the people needed. A lot of the legal reform. If you live in the United States, you're basically some of the laws that we have, a lot of the laws that we have is based on the Napoleonic Code. He was the one that created all these things. So again, if you're going to tell the story of Napoleon, yes, was he a dictator to some extent? Yes. Was he a tyrant to some extent? Yes. Did something like, 3-4 million people die as a result of the Napoleonic Wars? Yes, Napoleon was at war from the moment he came into power to the end of his power. He was at war. He fought the whole of Europe. He was special in a whole lot of ways. This is when he was sitting there really depressed towards the end of his life. Towards the end of his life, when he was realizing he even tried to commit suicide. So he was just like regular people. He was just like some of the stars and the celebrities that commit suicide and things like this. And you're like, oh my God, what's his name? Anthony Bourdain or something, the one that, the food critic. And you say, wow, he got everything. Robin Givens. Okay. You're like, wow, this man did all these things that he committed suicide. Napoleon, he tried to commit suicide. And it wasn't for his servant. This is the sword that he was going to do it with. That's why we got it, because the servant kept it and he gave it to his servant for saving his life. Yeah, Napoleon had issues. So when I was standing there in Corsica looking at his statue, I was moved not because of his fame. I was moved because this is a man that came from nothing. And became, when you go to Corsica, here is this is what you see. You see this huge, this is where he's buried. They buried him. He died in St. Helena, which is this god-awful island, 4,000 miles. It's the most remote island in the world, one of the most. They took him out of the ground from there and gave him this. This is where he's buried. This is his coffin. And he only lived to be 51 years of age. 51. Think about yourself. I'm 63. I mean, I haven't done none of those kind of things. So when you're telling, so in regards to cut, when you look at a gemstone, you should look at he even got an airport named after him. This is his airport. Aéroport Jacques Napoleon Bonaparte. Wow. In his hometown. So when you think about cut, from now on, when you think about cut, it's understand that this is a diamond. The diamonds that you have on your ears, your hands, your necklace, your toes, wherever you own a diamond and have a diamond, this is what it looked like. Some variation of this. It comes from a very simple element, carbon. Only element that comes from one thing. So every time you look at a diamond, whether it be a diamond or whether it be a person, every time you look at that person, don't just look at what they've done. Don't just look at, I don't know. Don't look at Madame Marie Curie. Don't look at just, Frederick Douglass or Harriet Tubman and go, oh wow, or Martin Luther King or John F. Kennedy, whoever. Understand that once upon a time, that's not who they were. They had to be cut. They had to be fashioned. They had to be polished. They had to be put together. Someone was a diamantaire for them. Someone, their mother, their uncle, their sister, someone said, you know what? You could be more. You could be more. And you have to find that in yourself. That's why stories are so important. You have to find yourself. And what pissed me off about that movie was that there were so many people that's going to watch that movie and have no clue on all the things that Napoleon had to go through to become Napoleon, all the things he had to do to overcome in order to have a movie made after him. And that story wasn't told. And what you can do with stories is, no, do I want to become misogynist and sexist and all the things that Napoleon was? Hell no, I don't want to be him. I don't want to be that. I don't see women like that. I don't treat women like that. But would I love to be a leader where I can inspire people? Imagine people in France love Napoleon. Now, I'm not talking about 18th century. I'm talking about today. There are people who love Napoleon. When you go to France, all you see is Napoleon, the eagle, his symbol and stuff. 254 years later, what are you going to do? What's your response? What have you created in your time? I'm not talking about being famous or anything. How many people have your story touched that they believe in you? They believe in you. Someone took your story. Think about what you've been, wherever you are in your life. Someone saw you as a rough gemstone, a rough diamond. Somebody took the time, your teacher, your mother, your uncle, somebody, your grandfather, took the time, showed you what you could do, measured you, created stones and said, you know what? If you go to school, you become that nurse. If you do this, those of you who are teachers, this is what we do. This is what we do. Here's Billy, here's Sally, here's Shaquem, here's Rwanda, who's Barbara, here's Ann. Someone did that. And then from that experience, voila. That's what you can do. That's the analogy that you can make in your own life. If it can happen to something that is made up of one element, what can you become with more than one? It's the story. And the story is how you get to understanding your value. That's it. That's what this is. That's the importance of a story. Understanding your cut, understanding how you are fashioned, understanding how it all came together for you and whatever you decided to do in your life. That's your story. And once you understand that story, that's where the value comes from. Not from other people. They're not going to make a movie. Well, maybe one day. They're not going to make a movie about Barry B. Mixon. But I know that my story has touched people. I know that my story, whether it be homeless, whether it be whatever, my story as a teacher, I touch people every single day because I realize that my story is important. My story has value. And once you understand that value, you'll begin to understand the thing that I say every week, that nothing has value without a story. So today's homework is, here's a man that was named Napoleon Bonaparte. He became Napoleon Bonaparte. And 254 years later, we have a movie about him. What are they going to say about you? What is your story? Who have you inspired in your life? Your kids, your employees, your business, whatever you do. That's your homework assignment. Just take a moment to appreciate your own story today. So, I hope you enjoyed today. I hope it's starting to resonate. I hope it's starting to see yourself in these different gemstones. And next week, I don't know what I'm going to do next week, but next week is going to be awesome because it's just, that's the way it comes. But until next week, I thank you for watching the show. This is my 3rd year of watching. So thank you for your subscribing, your interest, your watching. Thank you for your comments, everything else. You're a part of what has cut me into who I am today. And I can't tell you how grateful I am for all of you, friends, family, even people who don't like me. Some of them watch this show like, I don't like you, but your show is good. But thank you. So until next week, my name is Barry B. Mixon. I am a gemmological storyteller. And I just want to spend my life helping people discover the value of their own stories. So until next week, au revoir, à te tella, voilà.